And when you look at the city of Cincinnati, the only mainstream funding right now that comes into this city for HIV/AIDS in particular is from CDC through the Ohio Department of Health. If the CDC would stop funding the State Department of Health, and there was no money trickling down into the city from that, there is absolutely no private funding or city funding going towards HIV, and that's almost scary. The lenders do not support HIV/AIDS. United Way does not support HIV/AIDS because they don't support agencies that pass out condoms. We have found that Cincinnati Health Network is the greatest Cincinnati Health Foundation. They do not support HIV/AIDS, so none of their funding, even though they're for health, goes towards HIV. None. And we've applied, we've talked to specific people who are in charge of those fundings, but we've never been able to acquiesce, not just me, but other agencies here have not been able to acquiesce any of their funding. The Cincinnati Foundation has begun to support us in the area of youth with 2 small grants, and that's how we were able to do our website for youth. And they are the first ones to support us in putting up the billboard for marketing for HIV/AIDS, and that was a new thing that just happened this year. But when you look at foundations, agencies, when GE worked with us, it was not because of the HIV/AIDS, it was because of the youth that we were outreaching. But there are no major corporations that are funding HIV/AIDS in this city. There is no great passion in this city towards HIV/AIDS. It's something that people very rarely talk about. When we did the Test 1 Million, we brought into this city movie stars like Danny Glover, Shirley Ralph, Lamont Rucker, Rockman Dunbar, and not one city official came to greet them in this city. Not one. The mayor, nobody. When we tried to do the Test 1 Million campaign, the mayor of this city would not even sign off his approval for it to be a citywide project. We had to do our kickoff in Columbus, Ohio, because we could not get the support of the city. This city is so lethargic around HIV/AIDS. At about 5 years ago, every city had buses from their city that allowed them to wrap one bus with information about HIV/AIDS and have a big meet in Columbus, Ohio, where all the buses came. Cincinnati was the only city that would not allow it to happen. So there is a very poor concept of what's happening with HIV/AIDS in our city. There are no major signs about it. There's no talk on the radio unless you pay for advertisement. There's just no visible talking about HIV/AIDS in this city. It's almost like they think if they ignore it, it'll go away. Yet people are still being newly infected. I just had a 21-year-old who was infected less than a year, female infected by her husband, that we've been counseling with to try to help her walk through this process of how does she adjust and live in her community. Very attractive young girl who's got to deal with. Mother came to me at my church because she knew the work I did. Fell on me and started crying 2 months ago because her 15-year-old son is just newly infected with HIV. He is a young man who has sex with other men, but he doesn't even know who infected him because he had so many multiple partners and has not stopped that lifestyle. Yet there's no talk about HIV/AIDS visible in the schools. Nobody's talking about it in the schools. So who protects our young people? No funds are going towards it. So we really have no idea. They say 1% of the population is infected. We don't know that. We really don't know, because there's no concerted effort to really remove the stigma so that people feel free to get tested, so that people feel free to talk about it. So when you give a program for HIV/AIDS here, the same small group of people who have already heard the knowledge comes out. That's why I was so impressed with the Silence is Broken. I venture to say, if we had done a survey on, is this your first time participating in a program of this nature, I would be willing to say over 80% of those people there, it was a first time for them. And it's those kind of things that happen in this city. By you coming from a different perspective, we got a different group of people. But normally you get that same people coming who hear the same thing. I've forgotten how many, it's 200 and plus women I know that are infected, over 200 infected in this city. But when we give a program, it's always the same 5 women that show up, that are willing to speak out, because there's no atmosphere created for people to feel they can come and talk about their disease, or feel free to be open about what's really troubling them in the area of HIV or their fears. And so when you stigmatize a disease to this degree, you do more damage than you do good. So nobody wants to fund something that's so stigmatized. Nobody wants to talk about the newspaper. You notice the newspaper wasn't even there. You know, an affair like that, when we had Rockman Dunbar in here, the TV stations came, but there was not one newspaper story written about HIV/AIDS and what was happening in this city. So it's a very stigmatized place, and it's going to take more efforts like this in order for us to break the silence here.